Today in the EU Parliament begins grilling of commissioner-nominees. The Legal Committee of the European Parliament, JURI, met in Brussels this Thursday to start the inspection that will determine whether the commissioners-designate are fit for the job for the upcoming mandate of the European Commission. Although the review will be based on the nominees providing the necessary information, the JURI Committee plays a crucial role in scrutinizing financial declarations to identify potential conflicts of interest. But which are the commissioners-designate that are already raising concerns due to their business and political connections? Hello and welcome. I am Evi Kiorri, and this is Today in the EU. To look into this topic, I'm joined by our politics journalist, Magnus Lund Nielsen. Hi, Magnus. Welcome.
Hi, Evi.
So, the European Parliament Legal Committee, JURI, was meeting yesterday to kickstart the questioning process that will decide whether commissioners-designate are fit for the job. What was the agenda of this committee?
So, the role of the Legal Affairs Committee is to scrutinize the financial declarations and find out whether there are any conflicts of interest. And what the Legal Affairs Committee is doing is that they go over the financial declarations that all these commissioners-designate have sent to the European Parliament to scrutinize. The caveat to this whole maneuver is that the Legal Affairs Committee, as with the rest of the European Parliament, does not actually have a power of subpoena. So they are very much relying on commissioners-designate sending them all the stuff that is in their financial declarations, whatever would be relevant for it. And you could then obviously say, well, if you have committed tax fraud for billions of dollars, you're probably not going to put it in front of the Legal Affairs Committee of the European Parliament.
Not.
Exactly. So what they do to make sure that they sort of get the entire picture is that they ask these commissioners-designate to send them additional stuff. And we already know coming out of today's meeting that is indeed what the Legal Affairs Committee have done.
But they cannot launch an investigation.
They cannot.
Now, looking back at the previous mandate, what is the track record of the JURI Committee? How strict have they been in the past?
So back in 2019, there was actually 3 commissioners who didn't pass Parliament approval. And 2 of those 3 fell during scrutiny done by the Legal Affairs Committee, the Romanian candidate and the Hungarian candidate. And I'm not going to try to pronounce either their names because they're very difficult. And what they found out was that in the case of the Romanian candidate, she had apparently borrowed 800,000 euros from a person to finance her campaign, and it wasn't sort of declared in the proper right way. In the case of the Hungarian candidate at the time, he came under scrutiny for his role in Viktor Orban's government, and he was instrumental in enacting some laws that you in Brussels saw as undermining rule of law. And the Legal Affairs Committee in the European Parliament, of course, couldn't work with that.
And fast forward to our present, to today, what candidates are likely to have a hard time when it comes to their financial reputation?
So a bit of housekeeping, you could say, is that obviously people, typically I should say, people who are nominated for a position as a commissioner in a European Commission are people who have been quite active in political life, some of them also in business before. So there's tend to be always something to look into. And that almost goes for all of the candidates from, I must say, across the political spectrum. Some of the things that we know already by now that the Legal Affairs is looking into is, for instance, the Slovenian candidate Marta Kos, who was already a figure that we've been talking a lot about in Brussels over the past couple of months, not only because of her background, also because the way that she became nominated. Only the Slovenians picked for a commissioner after the first candidate had withdrawn. And there's a whole story to be told about that specifically. But on the financial declarations and the scrutiny that the Legal Affairs Committee is currently doing, she is currently working as a lobbyist for a company called Kreab, and is therefore also working with some big business interests. In her capacity as a lobbyist, she has been, if not directly, then indirectly working with big companies as Amazon, Google, Apple, and so forth. Secondly, the Bulgarian commissioners designate Ekaterina Zaharieva We know that she has been involved in a cash for passport scam back in Bulgaria. And then thirdly, there is the Greek commissioner, Kostas.
Apostolos Kostas.
Who is a gentleman who owns a lot of properties and a lot of land. That in itself is, of course, raising eyebrows in the Legal Affairs Committee. And then I should say, finally, the darling of the liberal wing of the European Parliament, Kaja Kallas, who is set to become the new High Representative and the EU's new chief diplomat. Her husband has had dealings with and has had business ties to Russia well beyond Russia's full-scale invasion into Ukraine.
Now, the novelty in this new mandate is that an unusually high number of commissioners designate will be heard by multiple committees in joint sessions. Why is that the case? Is the Commission learning from past mistakes?
The last part of your question is difficult to answer because, firstly, the reason why we have so many joint sessions, as it's called, is because we, in this current proposed makeout of the new European Commission, we have a lot of overlaps in policy fields between different commissioners.
All commissioners must work together, and it is in this spirit that each executive vice president will also have a portfolio to focus on, for which they will have to work with other commissioners.
I think we have 3 or 4 different commissioners working one way or the other with environment, for instance. And so, for instance, the Environment Committee is going to be present, and not only present, but also co-chairing, co-leading the hearings of 6 commissioners designate. That is kind of remarkable. Similarly, the Committee on Industry and Research is going to be taking part and co-leading 7 joint sessions hearing new commissioners designate. That is, of course, telling of, well, there is a big focus in the new incoming commission on, well, European competitiveness and industry, not only internally, but certainly also on a global scale. But it's also telling of how, some would say, completely consciously, von der Leyen has put her commission together in a way as to make sure different commissioners will have to coordinate their work with each other. It's going to be interesting to see, looking forward, what this means for also the legislative output and the legislative processes of the European Union, because we're going to have to look from sort of time to time what different environment file is going to fall on which commissioner. That is going to be interesting to follow.
And Ursula von der Leyen has been adamant that the Commission gets to work as quickly as possible.
I think all of Europe wants the new Commission to start as soon as possible, but we also have to do all the due diligence, the hearing procedures that are necessary. It is, for me, impossible to foresee the length of this process, and we are all working very hard to have the new Commission as soon as possible.
But the timeline has now been agreed on. What schedule are we looking at?
On Wednesday, the political chiefs in the European Parliament decided to opt for a November timeline. They were given the choice between 2 different timelines, one beginning in mid-October and then one beginning in the beginning of November. We're opting now for the one beginning in November. If everything goes smoothly, a new commission could be sworn in already by the 1st of December. And I say already because this is barring that no commissioners get rejected. I wouldn't say that would be unprecedented, but that would certainly be surprising. I should say also at the same time that we hear, and talking to people in the European Parliament as a part of the centrist forces, there seems to be not a truce emerging, but some sort of armistice where the current commission makeup, current commission structure, for all its faults, for all its flaws, and for all its complexity, it does seem to strike some sort of an equilibrium that most parties can see themselves in. So it is maybe not completely impossible we're going to have a new commission on December 1st. The caveat to that then is that if you have one commissioner being rejected, then you have first blood. And that would historically catalyst a chain reaction of sort if, say, the Liberals have one of their candidates rejected, they would probably want to send the message to the Socialist or the EPP, the centre-right, who've been in charge of rejecting their commissioner-designate, or either rejecting a Socialist or a centre-right commissioner-designate.
Right, and what if that is the case, meaning one of the candidates doesn't pass the test? Should we be expecting a new deadline for the formation of the Commission?
It's a good question. So what happens if we're not making it to the 1st of December? The question is, the month of December doesn't leave you with a whole lot of time for additional hearings.
Yeah.
You have to imagine that if one commissioner designate is rejected, you throw it all the way back to the member state, who's then going to have to propose a new one. And we've seen in the last couple of months that can take a while. And then the Legal Affairs Committee, who we're talking about today, will have to start over. And so the whole thing has to start over. The month of December doesn't leave you with a whole lot of time because you have Christmas. And so if we're not making the 1st of December, there's a pretty decent chance we're going to talk about a new commission being sworn in on the 1st of February instead.
Thank you, Magnus. I am Evi Kiorri, and this was Today in the EU podcast. Visit Euractiv to stay on top of the latest news. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can find us on all streaming platforms. You can get in touch with us by leaving a comment or a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Your reviews help us a lot to spread the word about our work, but also understand what topics you like listening to. This episode was produced by Miriam Saenz de Tejada, Charles Cohen, and me. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back on Monday morning. Said Commission President Ursula von der Leyen while presenting the commissioners-designate.